Hi. So I'm a little bit earlier than expected, and therefore it is what it is. I'm really happy to be here with all of you today, tonight, this weekend. And I know that this is the start of a conversation, not the end. But I want to share a little bit of little sobering ideas, if that's okay. I want to ground us in what's important. I want to talk about what I care about. Can I do that with you today? Now, I'm mad short, so I'm just going to bring it down just a little bit. Can you see me better? I can see you better. All right. In 1973, my uncle Kamal Siddiqui was tried 3 times. In each case, and each time, the case was dismissed for lack of evidence. A leading member of the Black Panther Party, this uncle of my heart faced extraordinary political persecution that turned into legal prosecution. And in 2003, 30 years later, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. The interesting thing is that between 1973 and 2003, only 2 things changed about his case. There was no new evidence. There were no new witnesses. The only 2 new things were the political and media environment in which his case was tried. In 1973, Atlanta had several vibrant newspapers that contributed to a multi-level debate and resulted in justice being served in his case. In 2003, those newspapers had been bought by a single owner and consolidated. The result was a powerful conservative story with one message: guilty as charged. Media consolidation ended my uncle's life as he knew it. And that's why all day long I keep my mind. You know, I had some thoughts. I wrote them down, but something in my spirit is telling me something else. All day long I keep my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I need you, I need you, I need freedom. Do you? That's what I need today. But somehow this morning, that's not exactly, my mind was on something a little different. This morning, my mind was on mergers, and that's just sad. But it's because of my uncle and thousands like him that these days, all day long, I find myself thinking about mergers. Interestingly, it's not the AT&T takeover of Verizon kind that comes with the public promise of more and better while the reality is less and fewer. Not that kind. Not the kind that kills tens of thousands of jobs, reduces competition, raises costs, and eliminates protections for the most vulnerable consumers and workers. No, not that kind. Not the kind of merger that consolidates corporate power, but the kind that consolidates people power. I'm talking about a new kind of merger, y'all. I'm talking about the kind of social merger that builds the political power of progressive movements in and beyond this country. I'm talking about a new kind of merger. I'm talking about the kind of merger that built the Media Action Grassroots Network. I remember when that network was 4 organizations. Today, it is more than 120. I'm talking about a new kind of merger, y'all. I'm talking about the kind of merger that brought hundreds of thousands of stimulus dollars into Detroit, Philadelphia, and throughout Indian country to expand broadband access and ensure that this access produces real economic opportunity to the poorest among us. I'm talking about a new kind of merger. The merger of reform and justice, the merger of civil rights and public interest, of people of color and white folks across the lines of class to demand what is the right of every human being. I'm talking about that kind of merger. We need a merger like this, because it's time. It's time to reclaim our cities from corporate disinvestment and control. Whether we're talking about big oil, big banks, or big media, the time for corporate loopholes to come to an end is right now. We have an economic catastrophe that has thrown more than 8 million people out of the labor market, left 750,000 people homeless, grew the number of uninsured children to 8 million, and made Google $18.9 billion richer. We need a change today. And what's crazy is Google ain't the worst. AT&T's profits went up 63%. According to USA Today, CEO pay jumped 47% last year, while average worker pay grew by only 2.1%. The LA Times said that corporate profits grew 36.8% in 2010, the biggest gain since the 1950s. We have a problem. We have a climate crisis and a safety net in jeopardy, with public services and public servants being defunded out of existence. Meanwhile, many of us, like me, have to choose between a telephone bill or an internet bill, between a car payment or a broadband payment. I'm telling you, it's time for something different. It's time. It's time for a direct action strategy that clarifies that it is corporate greed and not civil rights that is the enemy of good. We need a political merger. We need a political merger that makes it an imperative that the movement for media reform finally and formally joins the progressive movement. I mean, can you point out a moment in history when taking the middle road, echoing the corporate voice, or pleading with the conservative right has ever won anything substantive? Instead of being impaled on a bipartisan fence or playing politics with people's lives, I ask you, DC, to use your position to open up the conversation for the people that most of that DC never sees. I want you to open up the conversation for us to see the decision makers, build with the decision makers, and get the relationships that most of us never have access to. This is not a call to eliminate the insider strategy. This is a call to combine that insider strategy with a clear strategy for mobilization. I'm talking a new kind of merger, y'all. Frances Hesselbein said this: "Culture does not change because we desire to change it. Culture changes when the organization is transformed. The culture reflects the realities of people working together every day." It's time for us to reorganize our community. It's time for us to reorganize our movement. In fact, it's time for our sector to move from reactive to responsive and strategic, and we can do it. The question is, are we ready? Are we ready to partner with the movement for environmental justice, reproductive justice, and racial justice to confront corporate power? Are you ready? Are you ready to build local to local, community to community, like the groups did in the Media Action Grassroots Network, to build power together? Through collaboration, we can achieve scale. Are you ready? Are you ready to become the kind of values-based movement with a winning moral argument and agenda that is both populist and progressive? Are you ready? Are you ready to expand the progressive base for media reform while advancing a popular agenda for media access, rights, and equity? Tell me, are you ready today? Because I'm ready. I'm right here with you. I'm a card-carrying member of the We Who Believe Club. I believe in you. I believe in our fight. I believe in our struggle. And I believe that the time for us is now. I'll close in this way. We sit at the door of an incredible opportunity, but that opportunity stands on the edge of a knife. This year, thanks to the work of incredible leaders, we won the Community Radio Act. We initiated the first rules of the road for broadband, but we see what a struggle it is to retain our victories. At any moment, those victories can be taken away from us. Without a powerful movement, we have nothing to sustain our vision. These leaders knew what we all should know, that what happens tomorrow depends on what we do today. Once upon a time, we were a small group of committed people. Do you remember that time? About 10 years ago, when nobody really knew what media reform was. Nobody really knew the term media justice. We had to fight with people to say, hey, justice is a vision, reform is a strategy. You remember that time? But we've grown. We've grown since then. We know now that being small and noisy is no longer sufficient. We need to believe, and through that belief, build the kind of bridges that no corporate wedge could put asunder. We who believe are a new generation of change makers, and the change we seek depends upon having platforms from which to build a base, change hearts and minds, transform worldviews, and alter the material conditions of our lives. This is about who gets to tell the story of how we live and how we die. And I submit to you that the revolution will be televised. The only question is by who? AT&T, Comcast, Verizon, or you?